What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're excited for the weekend. I'm putting this video together on Friday, June 30th, the final day in the month of June, obviously, as we get ready for July. July means football is officially coming July 26th, the first practice for the Cowboys out at training camp in Oxnard, California. I want to wish you all a very happy 4th of July weekend. Maybe you're getting to this after the weekend, but we hope it's all going to be fun, full of food and good times for you. Today, we are continuing with the latest installment of our Blogging the Boys training camp preview series. We've been looking at position groups on the Cowboys, obviously, as we get closer and closer to training camp, and kind of discussing how we feel about them, what we think we can expect from them, questions we may have, et cetera, et cetera. We started with the quarterbacks because that's the way this game is played, and then we started after that with the offensive line. I can't say started, right? You can't start with something and then start with something. So that's my bad. We started with the quarterbacks, then got to the offensive line. Today we are looking at the backfield. It's mostly running backs, but fullbacks matter. Fullbacks are people too. So we are taking a look at the backfield as a whole, which is an exciting thing because the Cowboys are in a bit of a new space. And look, if you take a look at what the Cowboys have going on in their backfield, obviously Ezekiel Elliott is the only and the notable departure, one of the more notable departures across the entire team. And we're all wishing Zeke the best. It's going to be very interesting to see where he ultimately winds up. I know there's a lot of people who still think that he may wind up back with the Cowboys. I think that's just talk. Honestly, I think that's just stories. And I think that's just kind of something that people talk about out loud. But I don't personally see that happening. But obviously, anything is possible. For now, though, we are going to consider the reality where Zeke Elliott is no longer part of the team. So Tony Pollard is on the franchise tag. By the way, I said I'm putting this video together on Friday, June the 30th, which means we have about 2 weeks left for the Cowboys and Tony Pollard to come to terms on a long-term agreement. If the Cowboys and Tony Pollard do not by the middle of July, then he has to play the season out on the franchise tag. You and I have had this conversation many times over the last few years because I know you've been a subscriber here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. If you're not, it's not too late. Go down below and click subscribe. I think we all believe it's probably headed in that direction. Tony Pollard did sign his franchise tag, which isn't the case for another running back on the tag, just to take Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders as an example. So there's no real drama on that front. He is coming off of the fractured fibula, which certainly was a notable thing, especially given that it happened in the playoff loss to the San Francisco 49ers. But all told, Tony Pollard is one of the best, one of the more explosive players on this team. He had just over 1,000 yards as far as rushing were concerned last year, chipped in 371 through the air. So you're talking about a player with over 1,300 total yards and 12 total touchdowns. Again, he is such a dynamic weapon. And prior to last year, obviously, myself, a lot of people, you probably, people you know, if not you, had clamored, had begged, had pleaded, had shouted for Tony Pollard to be more involved in the Dallas Cowboys offense. And with Zeke Elliott now officially gone, it's all Tony Pollard all the time. And I know what Mike McCarthy said at the NFL Combine about how they want to run the ball. And I'm not here to say that that was a total lie or the Cowboys aren't going to run the ball at all. But it's worth mentioning, and I said this at the time, that a week after the Cowboys said, or Mike McCarthy said that they wanted to run the ball, a week later they cut Zeke and they traded for Brandon Cooks. And so while running the ball has its place in today's modern NFL, it is not, the Cowboys aren't trying to be the wishbone, to be, Army Navy. That's not what's happening here. But you do have to rely on Tony Pollard, obviously, to a large degree. And beyond that, you have to rely on your backfield as a whole. We have put Hunter Luepke's name here, obviously, as a starter. The Cowboys are going to carry a fullback. And if you're looking for someone to replace the production that Zeke Elliott had last year, the 12 rushing touchdowns, and it's been well documented. There's been a million tweets about how they were mostly short yardage situations. Hunter Luepke is that guy. Somebody who can kind of come in and line up all over the place in the backfield as an undrafted free agent here this year. He is kind of that the thing I always kind of hearken it back to is Oklahoma State has this position called a cowboy back, which Blake Jarwin played when he was at Oklahoma State, excuse me. And so it is kind of this like tight end in the backfield, big body that can kind of handle things. I think we all thought, not Oklahoma State, but when the Cowboys brought in Blake Bell a few years ago, we all thought, is the Beldos are going to be involved here, right? Like that kind of stuff. Hunter Luepke can totally do that, which is really great because you do want to make sure that you're not putting an enormous amount of wear and tear on Tony Pollard over a 17-game regular season and hopefully beyond that. So I feel very confident about the group at the top. I think where the biggest question for me is who is the primary option behind Tony Pollard. If we look at the names here, and we had to, envision a moment, envision a world, envision a scenario, envision a play that Tony Pollard is not a part of it, who is your RB2? Now, obviously, Deuce Vaughn is there. Deuce Vaughn was a really awesome and remains a really awesome story during the NFL draft, and I think we all know and believe he's going to make the team, et cetera, et cetera. But I think now that the emotion of the draft has kind of, faded a little bit, I think we're all kind of maybe seeing things just a little bit more clearly, and saying and identifying, hey, maybe he's not going to just, carry the ball. I mean, if you look at the carries between the Cowboys last year, and this isn't a fair way to do that, but Tony Pollard only had 193 to Zeke Elliott's 231. If you assume, I don't know, 100 of those Zeke carries going to Pollard, if you say Tony Pollard carries the ball almost 300 times, you're still going to have to, have somebody else carry the ball somewhere around 100 times. Is that Deuce Vaughn right away? Is that Malik Davis? I mean, besides Gully, Malik Davis is the only running back on the Cowboys who hit 100 yards receiving last year. In fact, he's the only running back who had any yards receiving. I meant rushing. He's the only. So to be clear, there were 3 running backs in the Cowboys last year that had any sort of recorded rushing yards. Tony Pollard, obviously, Zeke Elliott, and Malik Davis. And Malik Davis might be the option that's hiding in plain sight in that way. We had an article go out recently at bloggingtheboys.com that our own Danny Phantom wrote about. And while we've all, you and I and lots of other people have kind of given Deuce Vaughn the crown for the RB2 position, Malik Davis might fight him off. Rico Dowdle was obviously looking really great last year before he got hurt. Ronald Jones is somebody who the Cowboys brought in. I know he's got the, Super Bowl pedigree and things like that. I think we all are kind of overlooking, and I think we're fine with the fact that we're overlooking Ronald Jones, but there are options here. But my overall point is that I don't know that it's just going to be right away Deuce Vaughn complimenting Tony Pollard. That process might take a little bit of time, and that's okay. I think this backfield can work. I think it's difficult to find a backfield in the NFL where you just feel kind of incredible about it from top to bottom. The best teams in the NFL obviously do such a great job of cycling players in, and obviously you have some superstars like Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. If you want to say Saquon Barkley in New York, if you still believe in Alvin Kamara in New Orleans, Dalvin Cook wherever he lands, Zeke Elliott wherever he lands, Nick Chubb in Cleveland. I mean, you get the idea. There are a handful of runners that are still dynamic and special, and one of them is obviously Tony Pollard. So you've got that. You've got the kind of main course here. You have this really great and interesting addition of a weapon at the fullback position in Hunter Luepke, and now you've got these other options. And I think everyone's concern, even though we're here talking about the backfield and the running backs and how they contribute to the offense, is going to be the departure of Zeke Elliott and how the other Cowboys running backs or how the other Cowboys backfield members ultimately stack up in pass protection. And I think that because for a long time that was such a shining strength of Zeke Elliott, we made it out to be like the others were really bad at it. I think the Cowboys will be fine there, and ultimately that is not your primary concern when it comes to running backs on your team. All told, if I had to, kind of give this position a grade and how I feel about it, I might go B+. I mean, and some of that, the most, the largest factor, I guess, involved with why I've bumped things down a little bit is just the speculation and the trepidation regarding Tony Pollard's injury. We obviously have no idea what he's going to look like. It would make sense for the Cowboys to be slow with him. There's no need to rush him, obviously, once they start camp at the end of July. So right now, it's hard to be upset. I mean, there are some spots on the roster that the Cowboys could certainly use some veteran help, and we'll get to those as we continue our training camp preview series. But I think that they have handled the running back position in the right way. You can be upset that Tony Pollard's on the tag, that he's making so much money, but what was the better option? Letting him walk? Maybe getting him done or getting a long-term deal with him done, which they still could do, obviously, as we mentioned at the beginning of this video. I think they've handled this about as best as they possibly could. So kudos to them. Like I said, this was the 3rd installment of our training camp preview series here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. We have them going out all the time, all throughout the week. We have live shows that happen as well. It's a good time around here. And like I said, football season is getting closer and closer, so we want to make sure that you are prepared. Next up in our preview series, starting next week, the first one that will start next week, rather, the tight end position, which is in a state of flux, a state of transition for the Cowboys, which is certainly going to make what I hope for is an interesting discussion. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa. I am on TikTok, rj.ochoa. If you want to send me an email, you can do so, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com, or you can leave a comment down below, and we'll do our best to get to those as well. For now, I bid you adieu. I hope you have a happy and safe 4th of July weekend, and thanks so much for hanging out. We'll see you next time.